Hey, and welcome back to another video here showing you how to use After Effects and Adobe Illustrator. In this video, this is what we are going to be creating very quickly. A really quick little cool animation using a bunch of assets that we drew in Illustrator, brought them into After Effects, and then animated them. Let's jump right into how we do that. Firstly, we need to start with Adobe Illustrator. So if I flick over to Illustrator, here is my Illustrator assets, but we're gonna create them from scratch. So what you need to do is go File, New, Film and Video, and click on this guy. Now, 1920 by 1080, that's a standard HD resolution. That's 1920 pixels across by 1080 pixels high. We're going to make our After Effects composition in exactly the same resolution, so both of them will match. A little bit different to what you're used to when you open up an Illustrator project for the first time, or composition. Usually see a white page that's an A4 page in a portrait style. Now you're seeing a landscape 1920 by 1080 resolution image, and with this gridded transparent background. Don't worry about that. Over here you also see these green lines. These are the safe zones. Whenever we're designing something for the screen, they're just used as guides. We want to keep everything as best as we can inside this area here, because anything outside of your safe zones might get cut off. So any important text or anything like that, we want to keep on the inside. So in order to draw this scene, it's really simple actually. And everything that we've done so far with Illustrator and drawing motion graphics, we've broken really complex shapes down into more basic shapes and seen how we can abstract that and break it down. So first thing we need here is we're going to need a background, a sun. We're not even going to make this building look like this at first. We're just going to make a rectangle, another rectangle, and a weird little circle that we're going to squish and turn into the grass. So real quick, I'll draw that for you. If I just get the rectangle tool, I get some nice little hipster blue. And here is our background. I don't even need to be that exact because I could fix all that later. So now I've got my background. Let's go for our buildings straight away. So I'm gonna draw a building in here. And we want to take the stroke off everything that we do. If you need clarification on that, go back to a previous Illustrator tutorial to get some clarification on stroke tools and different things like that. Okay, so here's one building. I'm gonna hold Alt, drag off, hold Alt. Now I've got 3 buildings. Nice little skinny one here. Let's zoom in. Nice little skinny one and a little fat dude. I'm gonna take this guy down here like this. Cool. That's all we need our rectangle tool for. Now we flip over to our ellipse tool and we're going to draw the sun and the grass. So in our ellipse tool for our sun, remember a very cool and easy shortcut if I want to draw a perfect circle. Oh, wait a second. That was a problem. If I want to draw a perfect circle, I'm just going to hold Shift and draw that. It's going to give me a perfect circle. Very nice. Now come across here. Nice orange sun. And the last little thing is I am going to draw a big fat piece of grass. That was probably too big. So what I'm going to do is squish that down. And I don't even need to be neat about it. And I've got some buildings, some sun, and a piece of grass. Now, to illustrate this, pardon the pun, to illustrate this in Illustrator, we don't even need to keep things in order. Like, I could chuck these buildings up here, and it doesn't really matter right now what order they're in. It doesn't really matter how, if the hill's on top, if the building's on top, and I'll show you why once we bring these assets back into Illustrator. It doesn't really matter what they look like right now, just that they're separate assets. Now, whenever you draw something in Illustrator, you'll notice that over here, everything is drawn on the same layer. What we want to do is we want to separate that and release each asset into its own layer. If I open that menu there, what I'm going to get is different objects. You could see ellipse, ellipse, rectangle. What I want to see is layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but I don't see that right now because these things need to become their own layer. I can try and pull them out, but that's not going to work. So what I need to do is click on layer 1, click on this weird little hamburger menu over here, and I want to move down to an option that says release layers to sequence. Click that for me. You're going to get release layers to sequence, and what it's going to do is going to release each of those objects into its own layer right now. We want to separate them. They're still all within layer 1 though, so we want to separate these objects here, and we want to drag them out so they're in the same layer as layer 1. There's no hierarchy. They're not within layer 1 anymore. So I'm going to hold shift and click from layer 2 to layer 7. And if your layer panel is a little bit tight like this and you don't have that much room, just go to the bottom here, drag it out a little bit. And so now you can click and drag these layers out, and you'll notice that all 7 layers are in the same hierarchy now. Layer 1, as a matter of fact, has absolutely nothing left in it. If we toggle the visibility on and off, you'll see that nothing changes, and that's exactly what you want. You want layer 1 to end up with nothing. As a matter of fact, I'm going to delete layer 1 right now. Last little thing we want to do in preparation for bringing in our assets into Adobe After Effects is we want to rename our assets. Super important. I know it's not exciting to be organized. It's not exciting to get these things. It's not exciting to do the planning side of things, but it's really, really imperative that we do that when we bring it into After Effects. Now we're working with 7 layers. By the end of your projects, you're going to be working with 100 layers, 200 layers, something like that. So you want to know what asset is where. So right now I'm just going to rename my layers. This is going to be my hill. This is going to be my sun. This guy is a little fat building, so I'm going to call him Be Fat. I'm going to call this one Be Skinny. And this one Be Big. And what is this? This is my background. Let's double click that, call it BG. We could create a background in After Effects. We could create a color matte or a solid color, do something like that. But for now, we're just going to create it here. Save that work. And you want to save that work. Right now, I'm working on a folder on my desktop called 9.3. I have a previous project called City there from the last time that I did this. So I'm going to call this guy City 2. And that's ready now to move as a composition to Adobe After Effects. Now in Adobe After Effects, I'm going to create a brand new project. Brand new project. I'm going to save that out straight away. Save as. And I'm going to call it City Animation, but I already have one there called City Animation, so let's follow suit and call it City Animation 2. Now, in order to import the Illustrator files into After Effects, there's a bunch of ways that you could do this. You can go through the File, Import dialog, Import File, and then go up here, search for the After Effects project, City 2, Import As, and there's a bunch of things that are similar to the way that we're going to do it now, but I've always preferred doing it this way. I open up a folder with the actual file in it, which is my City 2 file, and I'm just going to click and drag that into the project panel. It's going to pop up with a menu straight away that's going to ask me some 2 very important questions. On your one, by default, it should open up with import kind footage. That's not what we want. I don't want footage. I don't want the layers to be merged because I want to animate them individually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import them as a composition. And document size, layer size right now, It doesn't really matter. Probably document size would work because we did it as a 1920 by 1080 resolution image, which is the same as the rest of our comps. But I'm going to do layer size now. I'm going to explain that why in just a second. What you get when you import it in now is you get a folder, and look what's in that folder. It's not, it looks like it's separate Adobe Illustrator files, but what it actually is separate layers within Adobe Illustrator. Super, super powerful. Now you have a composition that is built on the same document size as your Adobe Illustrator project. So if I double click that city, I have all of my assets there. And what's really cool is all of your layers that you made in Adobe Illustrator have now come across to Adobe After Effects. So if I want that hill to be in front or behind the buildings or something like that, then I can rearrange my assets now. I can put my hill in the front. I'm going to put my, later on, I'm going to want to, I'll leave my sun there for now. So it's my background there, my buildings there. They're in the right order that I want them to. I want the big one to be at the back. And that's kind of cool. All right, so now we've prepared our assets in Adobe Illustrator. We've drawn them, we've prepared them, we've renamed the layers. We're now bringing that into Adobe After Effects. We brought it in as a composition. So now it created a City 2 comp straight away. And now we're ready to animate each of our layers inside Adobe After Effects. So what we could do with that, I'm going to bring my playhead up to here, and probably the first one I'm going to do is my big building. Really, really, really simple animation right now is the same kind of animation that we did in our introduction to After Effects tutorials, where we are just animating the position property with 2 simple keyframes. All I want to do is, let's say I want all of my buildings here. They're going to start behind this hill somewhere down here, and they're going to pop up one by one. We're going to stagger them a little bit just to create some interest, and they're going to pop up and stop at the exact position where they are right now. Now, because I know where I want them to stop in animation, we're going to work backwards. So I'm going to move my keyframe, my playhead, to about here. Click on big, be big. Press P on my keyboard. Now remember, in the introduction to After Effects, we can go through here, transform, position. Yes, we can do all of that. Or we can go directly. It's a much, much cleaner way. Memorize these shortcut keys because they're going to help you work a lot faster. I can press P on the keyboard, bring up the position attribute. I can now activate the keyframes. Now remember, this does not mean add keyframes. This means activate keyframes. By default, it creates a keyframe the first time that it's activated. But if you continue to press this button, it's going to delete all the previous keyframes. So be very careful with that. I'm going to activate the keyframes. It's going to create a keyframe. I'm going to move back a little bit. And these guys right here, this is my X and Y position. I'm going to animate the Y value. And I'm just going to bring that down, right down here. Not even behind the hill, but right out behind the composition, outside of the composition. So now when I play that and I press space, that's what I get. Very, very nice. If I want to animate that and give it a little bit more fluidity, I guess, make it a bit more organic, I'm going to change these to easy ease keyframes. I'm going to highlight, click and drag these and press F9, make them easy ease keyframes. And the other thing I want to do is I want to make that animation a little bit faster. So that's a bit too fast. Cool. That's a little bit faster now. So I want to rinse and repeat exactly the same thing for Be Fat and Be Skinny. I'll show you what I did just then. I can select 2 layers and press P, and it will bring up the position for both of those. As a matter of fact, I know where both of them want to finish. Both of them want to finish about here, so I can press a position on both now. Creates 2 keyframes on each. I can move back here, and I can start to now animate each one individually. So I can bring that guy down here, be skinny, bring him down here. And now I can just play around with the keyframes. I can make one stagger it a bit faster, do something like this, select all of them, press F9. And that's probably a bit fast, but I kind of like the combination. Let's have a look at that again. It's probably a bit too fast, so, and I don't like that they're going in linear order, so I'm going to swap those around. As a matter of fact, I'm going to swap this up so that the big one takes a longer time. Yeah, something like that. And the last little thing is, I like what these do, but I want to stretch out the animation. So I'm going to select and highlight both of them. I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard. I'm just going to click and drag that last one. And it's just going to keep the same properties, but stretch it a bit. Okay, that's kind of cool. All right, we're almost there. And now last little thing we want to do is we want to animate our sun. Now our sun, the same way, we could change the position keyframes. We could animate our sun to come in from the left or something like that. We could make him come out from behind the hill or something like that. We could do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to change it up a little bit, and I'm going to play with the rotation property for sun. So I'm going to click on my layer and press R for rotation. And the problem with rotation is now it's going to rotate around the anchor point. And if I show you what that's going to look like, it's just going to spin on the spot. I don't really want that to be the case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this tool up here, the pan behind tool or anchor tool. That's this guy up here in between the camera and the square. So what I could do is click on this guy, change the actual anchor point, put it somewhere way over here. And now what it's going to do is, because it has to rotate around the anchor point as a pivot, the sun's going to do some kind of, some kind of axis like that. So let's give that a go. If I click on the sun and I rotate that now, very nice. Beautiful. Okay, so same thing as before. I'm going to start at my endpoint. My endpoint, just as my buildings come up, boom, I'm going to make my sun there, put a keyframe, bring it back a little bit, and make it come back behind here. Make that F9. And that's probably a bit too fast. Give it some more room between those keyframes. You know what? I'm going to make it much slower actually. And the last little thing is, I am going to, you notice this thing happens here where my sun's in front of my hill. I don't want that, so I'm going to drag my hill right at the top. And I'm going to drag my sun underneath my buildings. So now there might be, there might be a little bit of overlap there. I'm going to bring down the position a little bit. Oh, that's my hill, not my sun. Nice. So now it does this. Yeah, not really what I wanted, but that's all right. Okay, so you get the idea. So now we have this kind of animation with my sun and my buildings. That's really cool. Now, let's pause there. What we've done is we've created and drawn assets in Illustrator. We've prepared them for After Effects, renaming them, releasing the layers. We've imported them into Illustrator using a composition rather than footage or merged layers. Then we've animated the individual layers. We've animated the position attribute. We've also animated the rotation attribute. You're on your way to becoming a motion graphics expert because you really only need a couple of other attributes: scale, maybe anchor point, and really once you mix those together, you can do a lot of really cool things just by layering the animations. But let me show you one last thing, and this is really the power of using multiple Adobe products without exporting them and dynamically linking them. Because now, check this out. If I go to my buildings, which they look a bit bland and they look a bit simple right now. But if I go back to my Adobe Illustrator file, what I can do here is I can actually start to now modify my actual building. This is kind of cool. Let's say I don't like the color anymore. Let's say I want to add something to it. So actually I'm going to hide these other buildings. Be fat and be skinny. I'm going to take this guy and I am going to draw a little window. Make it blue. I might even give this one a bit of stroke. Give it some white outline. Maybe 3-point stroke, something like that. And this is starting to look kind of cool. Now I've got this building. I can control Alt and drag this. Select both of them with Shift. Alt and drag. Select these two with Shift, or these four with Shift. Alt and drag. And I've got this kind of thing going on, which is very, very simple, kind of cool. Let's say I wanted to even do something else, like, maybe not a rectangle, but maybe, maybe a rectangle. Maybe a rectangle, different color one. Let's say I change the building, different color, I can do that too. But let's say I put this guy up here. Little shade different. Alt drag this. Make it a bit smaller. Hold Alt and both sides will come in. Make that a bit brighter. And now I've got something, I don't even know what that looks like, but it's a little bit different. And this is the cool part about it, is that all of those assets are still within the Be Big layer. So now when I bring those other layers back up, when I Control S to save that, this is the cool part. You ready? I flick back to After Effects and boom. Now my building has all the new additions on it, but this is the best part about it. You don't have to reanimate anything. It's all part of that same layer. And now I can start to draw my motion graphics and do really cool things like that. So again, I really encourage you to start thinking about how I can take a complex scene and break it down. There's 1,001, probably more than that, 1,000,001 tutorials on YouTube. Not all of them are good, but there's a lot of really, really good stuff out there. If you want to draw specific landscapes, if you want to draw a different vector art, I encourage you, go and do that. Take really complex stuff and break it down, abstract it down into really simple shapes, because all of these techniques, they really break down into some really simple things like drawing in Illustrator, preparing the files, bringing them across to After Effects, and then really in After Effects, all we're looking at is the position, rotation, scale, and maybe a couple of other attributes that we are going to animate. That's all I have for you right now. Come back for another video and subscribe.